Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Ozcast.
Yeah, welcome back to Greats with Garby. I'm delighted to have you on board again, and I'm really looking forward to this because those who know me will know that I am a golf nut, be it playing it, watching it, talking about it, I don't care. So I was desperate to get a great on from the Australian golfing fraternity, and this guest most certainly fits the criteria. Before I welcome him though, a quick thank you to our sponsor. What an opportune time for this company to get on board. They are Lockdown Essentials. Masks are mandatory, as we know, in Victoria. Unfortunately, they are being recommended in New South Wales as well. So get on to lockdownessentials.com.au. That's lockdownessentials, one word, .com.au, and do your bit. They sell sanitizer and plenty other lockdown goodies as well. Protect yourself through this pandemic with lockdownessentials.com.au. Free delivery across Melbourne, and they distribute all over Australia as well. And this man has claims for a home state all over Australia too. We'll get the definitive answer soon, but he is one of the finest golfers that this country has ever produced, and one of the most likeable as well. He amassed 23 tour victories around the globe, including 2 on the PGA Tour, 3 Australian Masters and an Australian Open. He led a US Masters heading into the final round and finished in the top 5 in 2 other majors as well. And of course, he was an integral part of the International's only President's Cup victory to date, and that was in 1998. He is Craig Parry, and I'm delighted to say that he's with me now. Craig, hello to you.
How are you, Daniel?
I'm going very well, and it's great to see you. Where do we find you these days? What's Craig Parry up to these days?
I'm actually at home at the moment at Newport. We've sold our house last year and we've moved to our holiday house, and I'm doing golf course design work now rather than playing.
That you are, and I probably have to blame you a little bit for one of the most frustrating rounds I've ever had on Friday at Cuyunda Waters. Sorry to make Victorians jealous, but we can play golf here in New South Wales. We can go on golfing holidays as well. The setup is unbelievable, but I struggled enormously on Friday, and I saw your name on the board as the designer of that beautiful track.
Yeah, that's right. That took us nearly 2.5 years to build Cuyunda. And when we went in there originally, there was water everywhere on the golf course, and the council come along and said, no, you can't have any water. Well, the water was already there, so then they said, we would like to have the water back in there. So it was one of those things. 14 holes have water. However, if you play it smartly, you can get around and not lose too many balls.
Unfortunately, I fell victim to that. 14 holes of water. I think I'll put 2 balls in every single one of the options that were there, Craig. It's never a good sign when you're buying more balls after 9 holes, which is exactly what I did at Cuyunda Waters. But on the Saturday, you'll be happy to know I got some revenge on the course and played very well. So eventually I tamed it. But an awesome track. You've done a great job there. I spoke to a few people in Australian golf to get some background on you before I did this chat, and every one of them referred to you as Paz. But when we were growing up, it was Craig Popeye Parry. So where does the Popeye nickname come from, and where does it sit in the rankings?
Okay, so how it started, when I used to go up to Japan, the Japanese media liked to give nicknames to the sporting golfers, and they nicknamed me Popeye. I didn't know this, and the Japanese media told the other Australian media and media from around the world what my nickname was, or they'd given me, and the other players knew it, but I didn't know it obviously at the time because I didn't speak any Japanese. And that's how it come about, because of the TV and just the media. However, all the people that knew me as Paz. So if anyone yelled out in the crowd, Popeye, I knew they didn't know me. Whereas if they yelled out Paz, I did. So that's how it happened.
Did Popeye bother you at all? Were you fine with it? How did you feel about it?
No, it didn't bother me at all. It's just one of those things. The thing is with the media, you just got to let them go and do what they want to do. They need to write stories. They need to make it interesting. So I had no problem on that.
And it's obviously because you're an endearing character as well. I want to go through your whole career, but I've got some specific golf questions as well that I'm keen to ask you, because you're obviously someone who's a deep thinker on the game. And I dare say the Popeye moniker came because of your physique and the different physique that you had to a lot of golfers out there. As we know, the game has changed dramatically in the last 20 years, probably since Tiger came along, to this athlete era that we have in golf nowadays. And we'll wake up tomorrow morning at the time of this recording and watch the PGA Championship, and we'll see Bryson DeChambeau with 20 kilos put on, and Dustin Johnson and all these other guys, Brooks Koepka, who are all athletes now. How do you think, Craig, as brilliant as you were, and I read out your record off the start, would have gone in today's era, and some other guys from your day, where it's all about being an athlete now?
Yeah, look, the equipment was totally different. So you adapted to the equipment of the day. You know, we used to use persimmon-headed golf clubs, which had a very, very small sweet spot. And the golf ball used to spin a lot. So if you hit it wayward, it'd actually spin off and go off the fairway and go into the trees more so than today's golf ball. So the equipment is totally different. You know, I probably would have gone all right, but I wouldn't have gone as good as what I did in the past. I don't think.
I dare say you would have thought your way around it and managed to match up, because everyone I spoke to speaks about the discipline of your swing and the way that you adapted your mind to a course and just got through it and had such an incredible career, which we'll get onto in a moment. But the home state, growing up in Perth, Craig, we were always told that Craig Parry was a West Australian, and we claimed you. It doesn't take much for West Aussies to claim one of their own. But then I found out that you were born in Victoria and that you spent a lot of time in New South Wales. So what is the home state for Craig Parry?
Well, now it's New South Wales. I've been in New South Wales since 1988. So it's a long time. I've lived in New South Wales. So I suppose it has to be New South Wales. I was born in Victoria. I represented West Australia in state golf when I went to WA for a few years. And then I played for Australia. And then I met my wife, who was over here in New South Wales. So that's how it all transpired. And, Barry for the Western Bulldogs. So, yeah, some parts of me haven't left.
I'm a big West Coast Eagles fan. I was hoping we'd have converted you when you moved to WA, but people can't see this listening, but you have a Western Bulldogs Guernsey strapped to your office chair there where you're speaking to me from. So you're obviously a die-hard, passionate Bulldogs man.
Yeah, I was a number one ticket holder for about 8 years, and I used to go into the rooms with the boys, and it used to be a lot of fun. One year they come away to Vegas on the end of year season trip, and I went into the tournament office. And I said, look, I need 30 tickets for the golf this week at the Las Vegas Invitational. And they said, we can't give you 30 tickets. And I said, look, it's my football team that's coming over. It's like your NFL team. So I ended up getting 30 tickets, and I warned the players that I was playing with that these guys would be coming out to watch me play. Very first hole they arrived, I made an eagle on the 15th hole or 16th hole at Vegas. And it was fantastic.
Brilliant. And I dare say you would have had a lot of joy watching them win the flag in 2016 after such a long drought. Where were you watching it from?
I was in Newport, California. I contemplated coming home. I watched the ticket tape parade the day before on the computer with my son, Ryan. And we were staying at the Marriott Hotel at Newport Beach Golf Club, just across the road. And we were screaming at the TV. I haven't watched the replay of the game because I don't know if I can still believe that they have won it because the game was so close all the way through it. It was only 1 point with 7 minutes to go. I couldn't really relax until the boys got right to the very end, and then I really enjoyed it. We were screaming at the TV.
Did anyone in the States or anyone that you were around playing golf with that weekend have any idea as to how big an event this was in your life?
Oh, absolutely. The other Aussies that were around, and just people that knew me, because my very first autograph was E.J. Whitten when I was 3 years old, and I've still got that autograph. It's in the office here actually, and I followed the one team my whole life, and loved every moment that they go out and play, and I live and breathe and their wins and their losses. I get as frustrated as what the boys would.
Fantastic. Well, they gave you a lot of joy on that day in 2016, and you've given the club a lot of joy, obviously, with your wonderful golf career. Where did that all start? You've spoken about the passion for the Bulldogs. Where did the passion for golf start, and how did it start, Craig?
Okay, I was born in Sunshine. Sunshine was my first golf club that I actually joined. I joined when I was 10 years old, and there was a gentleman at the VGA that actually changed my birth date so I could actually join the golf club, because you couldn't be a junior member until I think you were 13 years old. But I joined when I was 10, and Tom Dogood is his name, actually changed my birth date so I could actually join as a junior member. And that's how I started. I joined Sunshine. I used to go down to Torquay at Christmas time and play at Torquay. And then eventually I joined Medway Golf Club as well. So I had a few different golf courses to go and play. And then I went to Western Australia and joined Royal Fremantle, which was a great course over there. It had a lot of really good players that helped me with my game. And we had good coaches over there, Graham Johnson at Lake Carrinup and Ross Metherell at Collier Park. He was at Hartfield at the time, I believe. And, I had really good coaching and, just got out and played golf.
So when then did you reach that magical mark of scratch for the first time? And beyond that, when did you say, oh, hang on a second, I've got past scratch. I can actually make a living out of this game and maybe do something special with it?
Yeah, I probably got to scratch when I was about 16, 17. And, I started to play really well consistently. And when the tournaments used to come over to WA and the May circuit, I'd be paired with the better players from the PGA of Australia, and you get to, gauge your game when you're playing with them. And I felt as though I could probably play against those guys when I was about 18. I played the tournaments in Australia. I think we had 13 tournaments back then. I made the cut in every tournament, and I would have made enough money to actually survive. So I turned pro when I was 19, just before my 20th birthday, and I struggled the first couple of years, and then after that, I was away.
Whenever I spoke to anyone about your game, they said that you just had an incredible discipline and an incredible knowledge of your swing and your game and what you needed to do to excel in a tournament or in a round of golf. And Grant Thomas, who I must thank, he's been a touring pro on and off for a few years, and he helped put this interview together. I played golf with him recently, and he still hits an incredible ball. Pleasure to watch him play. And he said that you used to have an issue with the hook, and you said to yourself, that's it, I'm never going to hook again. I'm going to play with a fade. No matter what I do, I will never hook another golf ball. Can you talk us through that development and how your swing came to be the Craig Parry swing that we grew to love?
Yeah, when I was an amateur, I actually did hook the golf ball, believe it or not. And it was when I turned professional, I decided I'm not going to hit the ball left, because that's the one that gets you in all the trouble. And the best players of the day back then was Jack Nicklaus, Norman, Baker Finch. All the leading players were actually hitting it left to right. So I worked out if I got the butt of the club in front of the face, that the club was going to go through to the left, and I just had to hold open the face a little bit, and I could hit a fade and took out the left side of the golf course, and it really made the game a lot easier. The shot that I really did struggle with was the hook in the long run, but knowing your weakness is just as much as knowing your strengths.
And one of your strengths as well was putting. I mean, we grew to love the Craig Parry short game, the chipping and the putting. When did you know, hang on, I mean, I'm sure everyone on tour is a damn good putter, but when did you know this is a serious strength of mine, and I just need to put this ball on the green, because if I can drain putts, I can make a big difference? When did that sort of become a big part of your game?
That was very early. When I went over to WA when I was 17, that's all I worked on as far as my short game, chipping, putting, bunker play, just pick the harder spots. Terry Gale actually helped me a lot in that regard. He said, go out and practice the toughest shot, so when you get an easy shot, you're thinking a hole in it all the time. And that's what you had to do, because you're not always going to play well. And, there are going to be times when you're going to struggle with your game, and you need to get out there and, get a 75 down to a 71. And that was the way you could do it with your short game. And it also made it more frustrating for the other players you're playing with, because if you're hitting it everywhere and getting up and down, you can get into the psyche as far as, beating other players. And it's just with your short game. Tiger
Woods found that out the hard way one day at Royal Melbourne in 1998, which we'll get to a little bit later on. But 11 years earlier, 1987, you broke through for your first big win, the New South Wales Open, and you won in Canada as well, and then you went across to Europe for a few years before you cracked it in the States. What's it like for a bloke of 20, 21 years of age going across to Europe with his golf clubs and not much else and trying to make it in this incredibly difficult game?
Oh, look, I was lucky at the time. I just met my wife, and we went across to Europe in '88. That was my first year over there. We had 6 weeks in Japan. We had a week in Korea, and then we went straight to Europe. And, there was no internet back then, so we had to get on really well, and we did. And all of a sudden we were away. We were in each other's company, and we went over for a couple of weeks. I finished second to Norman in the Italian Open, which was my second event. And, I made enough to keep my card out of that event, come back to Australia for a few weeks, and then went back over again. And, I had enough confidence in my own ability to get out and, play the golf courses. Europe suited me much better as far as the golf courses were firm and fast. Whereas in America, with the soft fairways, the softer greens, it's more a bit like darts, and doesn't really suit my style of playing. Whereas growing up in Victoria and WA in windy conditions, you had to control the ball flight, and that's Europe. Whereas America is, just hit it anywhere you like, and there's no real wind, and the ball doesn't move in the air. So, different conditions, and I had to adapt for each of the different places I played. I only played in South Africa once. I played the $1 million. I finished 8th in a 10-man field. 2 players were DQ'd, so that's how I finished 8th. Look, you had to get your game ready for each time you played to suit those conditions.
Which you did. You've spoken about your wife and the support that she gave you, and that must have made a massive difference in those early years. But what about the other Aussie golfers on the tour? Can you talk us through that camaraderie and the bond and the way in which you sort of get through those challenges together?
Yeah, there were always a lot of Aussies playing each of the tours. It didn't matter if it was Japan, Europe, or Australia, US. You would always work out a time that you were going to go and have a practice round. And Wayne Grady, Baker Finch, Peter Senior, Mike Harwood, we'd all be playing, Peter Fowler, and you'd go and play practice rounds together. So, and each one of the guys would play really well at certain times, and it would spur other guys to go out and play really well as well. So, I was lucky to grow up in an area where there were plenty of Aussies.
And there was one occasion, Craig, where you spurred everyone in Australian golf on. That's the 1992 Masters. So after 4 years of moving overseas, you have this really big break. You make it on the PGA Tour, and now you're announced to the world with the lead at the halfway mark of the 92 Masters and the overnight lead heading into the final round as well. What was that night's sleep night like before we get into the final round? That feeling of leading the biggest golf tournament in the world heading into the Sunday.
Well, we had to finish the third round on that Sunday morning. So I didn't actually have the lead. I was playing with Ian Woosnam, who was the defending champion from the previous year. And we had to finish off on the 15th hole, the par 5. And we had 15, 16, 17, and 18 to play. And early in the morning on that Sunday morning, I couldn't get to the green in 2 on 15, so I had to lay up. And I parred 16. I made a birdie on 17 and a par on 18. And that's when I got the lead. And I'll go back to the house where Jenny and I are staying and go back and have a snooze and then wake up like normal and try and get ready for the final round. But, I just went back and had a couple of hours sleep and, I was fine. That part didn't bother me. It was a warm day. I remember that very clearly. And Baker Finch played with Ian played with Raymond Floyd, and I played with Fred Couples in the final group. I think if Ian and I played together, one of us probably would have won that year because we were both playing exceptional golf. And if you actually look at the replay, both Ian and I hit it under the hole the whole time. And where we come undone was the greens. The greens actually slowed up on that Sunday because they didn't get the mowers out to cut the greens on that Sunday like they normally would. But the practice green was really, really fast. So you're leaving putts, 5-6 foot short because the greens aren't as quick out in the golf course.
You played with Fred Couples. He goes on to win it, and you drop a fair few shots back. Still an incredible effort, obviously. But what was the impact of that final round that affected you, that probably stopped you from going on and claiming, golf immortality?
Look, I was probably too young at the time. to handle the way that the gallery got involved in the final round. I had a 3-putt on the third hole, the fourth hole, and the fifth hole, and I missed a little one on 12. And, it's just one of those things that, I'd make a bogey and the gallery would start clapping. It's more like a team atmosphere, and I wasn't used to gallery actually barracking against you. In previous times I won tournaments. I won 4 tournaments in Europe, the German Open, the Scottish Open, Italian Open, before getting there. However, I wasn't used to that team golf. And at the end of it, it was, pretty demoralising, final round for what actually happened. But Davis Love actually come up to me later on and said, look, don't take it personally. It happened to me at the LA Open when he played with Fred Couples. And it wasn't anything to do other than they wanted Freddie. Freddie was their man that they wanted to win, and obviously he did.
That's so unusual at Augusta, though, because they're known as being, the patrons of golf, and they don't barrack in that way. There seems to be that real respect. So that's unusual for Augusta for that to happen, isn't it?
I think it's one of those things where I think the gallery has changed now for the better. When we played in 92, it was a warm day. We went out and finished the third round early in the morning, so the patrons were all in there early. Warm day, a lot of alcohol. We arrived late in the afternoon to play. Their man is up there, and they're making sure their man can win. I mean, I'm as passionate as anyone about barracking and things like that, but there's a way you barrack it. There's a way you don't barrack.
You got one back on Freddie Couples as well in 1998. So you knocked off Tiger and Freddie together with that chip. We'll get onto that in a moment, as I said. But for 1992, you won your first of 3 Australian Masters. So perhaps not the US Masters, but just before you pulled on a gold jacket, and there would be 2 more to follow in 94. 92, you knock off Greg Norman. 94, you knock off Ernie Els. And then you knock off Brad Hughes a few years later, who was one of the guns when it came to the Australian Masters. He won a couple of gold jackets himself. All of those triumphs came at Huntingdale, Craig. What was it about that tournament and that course that brought out the best in you?
It was tree-lined, firm and fast, and the greens were relatively soft, undulating greens, but very, very quick. And I love putting on those greens. The way you had to play Huntingdale was always under the hole and attack from under the hole. And because I could actually control my distance into the green, I could get the ball under the hole and have the easiest putt for either a par or a birdie. And, it's just that one of those golf courses I just love playing. And it's a bit like Augusta. The flags go in the same position. You know how to make a birdie on any given hole, how to attack it. Sometimes attacking is playing defensive, and it might be just hitting it to the middle of the green and then putting across. So, for example, the 11th hole, the green is a little bit diagonally at you. The front of the green is out to the right and the back of the green is to the left. For me to play that hole really well, I just had to get it on the green and just putt across. Whereas I had plenty of other holes that I knew that I could actually attack. So
you knock off Greg Norman. Ernie Els was young in 94. He won his first US Open later on that year, but he's a kid coming through. But what's it like battling the shark down the stretch, in the halcyon days of Australian golf when the whole country's watching and there are massive galleries and so on and so forth?
Oh, look, it's nothing better than beating any golfer. Don't worry about being the shark. To win a tournament that's high on our pedestal in Australia was always something I cherished. And I love playing golf in Australia because obviously my game is suited for firm and fast. And by going back to the same golf course all the time that I knew very well, I first played Huntingdale when I was about 13 years old. And I remember shooting 6 over par when I was 13. It was, a golf course I liked playing ever since I joined playing there.
It was a great time in Aussie golf. I mean, it really was. I mean, you guys who were starring overseas always came back. The Shark led the way, but all of you guys followed him, and it was just fantastic fields. It didn't matter which internationals were there because we knew we had the creme de la creme of Aussie golf. Does it disappoint you, Craig, that our superstars playing abroad don't always come back now?
It's one of those things that's very difficult for the guys to come back and play all the time because of the PGA Tour schedule. The PGA Tour has made it difficult for our guys to come back and play because there's tournaments on throughout the whole year now. Whereas when we were coming through early in the 80s, there were no events in South Africa that the guys were going to go and play. There was a couple of events in Japan, but in general, everyone come back and play because there were no other events to play.
I mean, Adam Scott's made a pretty good effort more often than not. Mark Leishman does. Jason Day cops some criticism, and Jason Day's made enough money that he can pick and choose his events. Would you like to see him come back a little bit more during our Aussie summer?
I'd like to see them all play. If it's only 2 weeks of the year, as you say, Mark Leishman and Adam, they've been fantastic. I mean, Jason, it's a little bit harder because he's married an American lady. So, his roots are over in America, and you only get so many weeks off. And it'd be great for him to come back and play. Anytime he does, fantastic. And, you can't be too hard on these guys because we do need them to come back at some point.
Exactly right. Thankfully, they just about all did. Jason Day couldn't because of injury for the President's Cup at the end of last year. And that stoked memories, Craig, of 1998, the last time the Internationals won the President's Cup. And you had such an influential role in that victory, thanks to your partnership with Shigeki Maruyama, to take down Tiger Woods and Fred Couples. And your chip basically set the team on its way. It gave everyone so much momentum, and the rest is history. Just talk us through that moment, that chip in against Tiger and Fred, and the energy of that occasion and that entire week.
Yeah, the whole week was amazing. Peter Thompson was our captain. Wayne Grady was our assistance captain. Everything we did as a team. And I remember going on the bus out of Royal Melbourne after one of the practice rounds. And we're all the players and the caddies are on the bus, and Grades jumps on and he says, opens up the esky and he says, "Boys, we're not going anywhere yet. Just give me a couple minutes." So he grabs the esky, jumps off the bus, goes into Royal Melbourne, goes and gets some Australian beer, comes back. Right, we're not drinking the American beer, we're drinking Aussie beer. So that's how we started. And as I say, Grades was fantastic as assistant captain, and he kept everyone up and motivated. He had a great attitude. And, all the players got on really well that week too. And, when you've got so many different players that have different egos, you're not going to get on with everyone. You just put everything aside and you just go and play. And, I had Shigeki Maruyama as my partner, who I'd played quite a few times in Japan, and we'd been paired together. And Peter Thompson said, "I'd like to put you with Shigeki." And I've said, "Fantastic." And, because he's a really nice guy. And, we've got on really well for many, many years. And, we got paired together, and I just had to point him in the right direction. He was playing unbelievable golf, and I knew Royal Melbourne extremely well. And it was just a matter of, playing a game of chess around Royal Melbourne and having the easiest putt to make your birdies, or sometimes even par was good enough.
And for you, it was a chip in for birdie with Tiger and Fred Couples sitting on the green and pretty much in the box seat on that hole, and you chip in to tame the Tiger on that occasion, who, as we know, was already on his way as one of the biggest stars, if not the biggest, in world sport. How often do you think back to that moment as one of the biggest in your golfing career?
Oh, it's great that it gets played, quite often in highlights. Against Tiger, and Freddie. And, it's one of those things you can look at the shot and go, "Oh, this is, pretty good." And it went straight in the middle of the hole. And, I had Jack Nicklaus come up to me and put his arm around me because he was the American captain and said, "Well done. I knew it was you that hold it." It's just one of those things. It's a good feel moment. And, when we went down to the President's Cup last year, it was played quite a bit to the international team. And, we had a video from about 4 or 5 of us that played the winning team previously, and Ernie, really involved the past players. And we spent nearly the whole week in the international team tent trying to help the guys. And Adam was fantastic. It was like, "Come on, we need you to come out and, be a part of it." And it was really good. I really enjoyed being at Royal last year.
That's fantastic. I watched that video that you guys made as a pump up for the international team, and you could tell it spurred them on early. They started so well, unfortunately couldn't get it done. But one of the lines that sticks out from that video, I think it might have been Stuart Appleby who said it. Maybe it was Wayne Grady. I can't remember. But someone said, "Even the Shark, Greg Norman, was in a good mood that week." That shows how good it was. What was Greg Norman like in one of those team environments? Could he be a little bit different to the rest? Because, of course, his star was on a different level to everyone's.
Yeah, Sharky that week was absolutely fantastic. And there was actually a couple of different videos made. There was an R-rated version with the players, and there was actually a G-rated that everyone else seen. and it was actually really well done. And Greg got on really well. He wanted to win that event, and it was one of those things that we got it done early on that Sunday morning, and everyone played extremely well that week, the whole team.
The internationals is such an interesting concept in world sport, never mind just golf. And some people diminish it from time to time because they haven't won it since 1998. How passionate are you about that team and the concept and the internationals getting one over the United States? And they did go so close, of course, at Royal Melbourne last time out.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I love the President's Cup. The opportunity to represent not only your country but other countries at the international level, that means a great deal to me. Because we watched the Ryder Cup, and I never wanted to watch the Ryder Cup because the Australians could never play in it, and I always felt that we had a team as strong as the European team back in the 80s when we were all coming through. I had Bernard Gallagher actually say to me, "Look, your grandparents are Scottish. We'll get you a British passport and you can play in the European Ryder Cup." And I said, "No, that ain't happening." And it was just one of those things that when it was available for us to play, it meant everything to me. And I was just brought up to do your best. And when you represent your country, you're very proud about it.
Hopefully we can get one over the Yanks soon. It seems as if Ernie's set about a culture there that can potentially lead to more glory if it can be carried on with, I think Trevor Immelman's the new captain, isn't he?
Oh, is he? Okay, I didn't know Trevor was new captain. But look, Ernie was a great captain. He was really, really good. His team assistants were very good. And, the galleries down in Melbourne, at Royal Melbourne, were fantastic. And, we were very close. It was a couple of holes that really got us by surprise. And, the boys didn't play the holes as well as they probably should have. And, it might have been a different story.
Yeah, trust you're enjoying Craig Parry. What an ornament to the game of Australian golf he is. Just a quick thank you to our sponsors before we carry on with more awesome tales from his wonderful career. Lockdown Essentials are our sponsor. That is lockdownessentials.com.au. Even if you're playing golf at the moment in Victoria, you need to wear a mask, and we know they're being recommended in New South Wales as well. So do your bit. They sell sanitizer and plenty other lockdown goodies. Protect yourself through this pandemic with lockdownessentials.com.au, the website, lockdownessentials, all one word, .com.au. Free delivery across Melbourne, and they distribute all over Australia as well. And the Buy East Buyers Agency. So if you're looking to buy a property in the most lucrative market in Australia, that is the eastern suburbs of Sydney, just cut out all the nonsense. Get onto the Buy East Buyers Agency. They'll sort it out for you. Speak to Ronan or Dave. Tell them Garby sent you, and you'll get a 10% discount off their fee, which makes it hugely worthwhile. So thank you for your support, Lockdown Essentials and the Buy East Buyers Agency.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Let's get back to more gold from Craig Parry. 1999, so a year after the President's Cup, you're challenging for the British Open, or the Open Championship as they like us to call it, at Carnoustie, of course. And it is one of the more memorable moments in the history of golf because of what happened with Jean van der Velde, and you played with him in that final group, which we'll get onto in a moment. But before we talk about that, the winning score, or the winning group for the playoff, all finished on +6. You finished a shot behind on +7. It's a crazy score for a golfing major. Can you talk us through Carnoustie and the way it was set up for scores like that to occur?
The players were calling it Canasty. The rough outside, the thick rough was about 4 foot high. It hadn't been cut in a good 6 months. It had been fertilised. And on the Wednesday evening, they actually made another cut width, or 2 cut widths, in the first cut from the fairway. Otherwise, the scores would have been a lot higher. And, it was 6 overs, just a score. I mean, no one remembers really about the score. They remember who wins the Open Championship. And that's probably what it should be, just go and play. The lowest score wins. And, just deal with it. We had a little bit of wind that week. The first 2 rounds I played with Tiger. I remember making a double at the first hole. A nice way to start your Open Championship in '99. And then on the Saturday, I had a really good round and shot it, I believe, a few under par. And that Sunday, I made a bogey, a triple bogey, and a double bogey on 16th, and lost out by a shot. And I was just as frustrated as anyone. And I had Jack Newton come up and actually put his arm around me because he lost to Tom Watson there as well, and said, Jack put his arm around me. Yeah. And, this place owes us one.
That it does. Before I get onto that final moment with John van der Velde, what's it like playing with Tiger at a major? How distracting and how big of an event is that?
Well, I didn't mind it because I'd played with Tiger when he was 17 at Carnoustie. We played the Scottish Open. I actually finished third that week. And he was also a member at Isleworth, where I actually joined when I went to America. So I've known him since he was 17. We had a house in the same estate. We used to go and play and practice together, even though there's 20 other tour players there. So I was quite comfortable playing with Tiger at any time because that's what I did when I was at home.
I asked some listeners for questions, and a listener called Robbie put this one to me, and he said, is it true that you taught Tiger how to play the low stinger into the wind?
That comes from Carnoustie. He watched how I actually went around and played the golf course up, because I worked out with Carnoustie, if you hit the iron off the tee and keep it really low and get it into play, it didn't matter if you hit a long shot into the green, as long as you're from the fairway. Whereas if you hit a driver off the tee and it went in the rough, you chip it straight back and then you go onto the green. So, you had to make your mistake with your second shot, not your first shot. So I'd worked out how to hit it very low, playing at Raw Fremantle. Actually, Lake Carrinup was the place I actually really worked on it, because the practice range is so high at Carrinup. The sea breeze is coming in. You had to actually hit it off as low as you possibly could. And that's how I learned to play, punch shots and just keep it as low as I possibly could.
So did Tiger ask you how to do it, or he just watched you and picked it up?
He watched me, and then he asked when I actually went back to Orlando, what are you doing? And I was just saying, look, everything goes into the ground on the ball, and don't worry about the follow-through.
Obviously, it didn't take him too long to pick it up, and I'm sure he had it down pat pretty quickly. But Craig Parry with the lesson for Tiger Woods, that's something that I'm sure you can cherish forever and a day. If only John van der Velde had listened to you as well, Craig, because I dare say you would have made the mistake that he made with that triple bogey on the last, which cost him, of course, the chance to win the Open Championship. What on earth are you thinking as he rolls up his pants and thinks about playing it from the water on the 18th hole, and this meltdown's occurring in front of your eyes?
Okay, so you got to go back to the start of that hole. We were playing in a little bit of rain, drizzle, and the wind was into our face. So it was probably blowing 10 to 15 kilometres an hour. So he had to hit driver off the tee, and he got abused for actually hitting driver when he couldn't really hit three-wood because he wouldn't have carried all the heavy grass, and it goes out towards the burn. And his second shot, because of the angle he's hitting into the green, he had to actually favour the right-hand side. So the best place to hit it is towards the grandstand and the bunker, because there's out of bounds left, there's a water hazard in front, and there's out of bounds long. So he did the right thing. It just happened to hit the post and pop back into the burn. I was over the other side of the bridge and watching back in, and when he hit his third shot and de-accelerated and it went into the burn, he was a good 3 metres back from the face, and it was about 5 foot high, but the tide was actually coming in and the ball was oscillating and going further down. If he went straight to the ball, he would have been able to play it and got it out, but he frigged around and walked around and then took his shoes and socks off, and in the meantime the ball is getting lower and lower and it's making it harder to play. So that's when he went back and dropped it and hit it into the bunker next to me, and that was my shot. This took a long time to transpire, and I hit my shot and hit it into the hole because I knew what the leaders in the clubhouse were, and I knew it was always going to come up one shot even if I did hole it. So that was just like, oh. such a gutted feeling, knowing that you won back from the playoff, the guys in the clubhouse. And Jean had to get up and down and make the playoff.
Which he did, but, what were you thinking as he was going through all of that? Because you were such a disciplined golfer, and you've spoken through the mistakes. I mean, it must have been gut-wrenching for you as well to watch someone go through this turmoil on the final hole of a major when he seemingly had the thing in the bag.
Oh, he definitely had it in the bag. Look, he unluckiest golfer ever. Yeah, pretty simple. To hit that grandstand and pop all the way over the other side of the burn, if it just drops down, or if it goes in the grandstand, you can drop in the drop zone and you can chip it onto the side of the green. The rough isn't that bad. It's an easy chip to get the ball onto the green. In 2-putt, he's out of there. He's the Open champion. And, it was just one of those things that the wet draft, the raining, just that drizzle made it really tough in that long rough. For his third shot, if he just hits it a little bit too hard, it goes out of bounds on the left-hand side. It's a brutal hole at the best of times. And obviously when you're playing the final hole of a major and, in the last group, the last two guys out there, it was bloody difficult. And a lot of the commentators didn't actually say what was actually happening because they're in a compound somewhere out in Carnoustie and they don't realise it's raining, there's a little bit of wind. It's always easier in hindsight, but when you're in the moment, I think he actually did the best decision-making he could have done, other than he could have hit pitching wedge up the fairway for his second shot and then pitching wedge onto the green.
Yeah.
And, he walks away a winner as well. So it's just one of those things. Ifs and buts and couldas, doesn't matter. That's
the game of golf, and it's a brutal one. And Scott Verplank found that out in 2005 at Doral when you're playing the Blue Monster, the 18th there, the 4 championship. You're in a playoff with him. You've taken the 5-iron out the bag, and one of the more difficult holes on tour, you've managed to sink it for an eagle. For one of the great moments in your career that Australian golf fans have loved watching over and over again.
Solid shot. This is a good-looking shot. This going at the hole.
What a shot by Craig Parry! Unbelievable! Championship over.
We've just heard it there, Craig. I mean, it's an incredible occasion. Just take us through the emotions of that shot and the moment.
Well, the moment we played downwind, and that's very unusual to play that hole downwind. I probably played that hole 40, 50 times, and we always played into the wind. So, to be playing it downwind, and I had 6-iron into the green, and my brother was on the bag. I wanted to hit 5-iron, and I knew that was the distance the ball was going to land at the flag. And he said, no, you pumped up a little bit. We'll hit 6-iron and go from there. So anytime you go straight downwind, the ball goes straight and doesn't get deviated so much. And because Verplank had it on the right-hand back of the green, forced me into going at the flag. And normally my ball would go a little bit left to right. This time it just went dead straight. And I knew it was actually going to be pretty good with the reaction of the crowd. Because the whole location was just over a little rise, you couldn't see where the ball was as it went into the hole. Obviously, I knew it went into the hole because of their reaction. And, one of the best things of that was Jack Nicklaus coming up to me at the Masters a few weeks later and said he watched the playoff and he watched me hit one shot and got to turn the TV off. The golf was over. Tiger went to Dubai with Mark O'Meara and they asked who won the golf and they said, Paz won an eagle in a playoff. And they're thinking, fantastic, he made eagle on the first hole. And then Tiger come up to me a couple of days later and said, you eagled the 18th hole? You got to be kidding me. But no, it was a lot of fun.
When you get reactions from Tiger and Jack Nicklaus as a result of a shot, you've done something pretty special in your career. So it's just an amazing moment and great to watch it. But it had a bit of a sour taste afterwards, didn't it, Craig? Because Jimmy Miller was commentating and he criticised you at the time and said that basically you had the swing of a 15 handicapper and that Ben Hogan would puke if he saw it. That hurt you a bit, didn't it, at the time?
Look, the media, Johnny Miller was up against, the ABC is up against the CBS network, CBS, NBC, and ABC. They're all in competition with each other, and you've got ladies golf, men's golf overseas, and if they don't say something controversial, people will turn away. And most weeks there's only ever one winner, so you can more or less say whatever you like and you'll get away with it. But this week, Johnny Miller got a bit of egg on his face, and when I went into the media's tent to explain what happened, and they said, "How do you feel?" And I said, "Look, I'm the best 15 marker that's ever win on the PGA Tour," because the other media guys don't have the volume turned on because they're all putting their stories into different newspapers and radio and, talking about the event. And they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, Johnny Miller reckons I'm a 15 marker, and Ben Hogan would puke in his grave if, seen my swing." But, I had a lot of support from other golf instructional or, fellow golfers and the NBC itself. They said, privately, we're disgusted with what he said, but publicly we have to back Johnny Miller. And Johnny Miller ended up coming and apologising to me, and then he apologised to me every single time I seen him thereafter. So as far as I'm concerned, it's over.
You got some backing in there, but doing some reading. I remember your manager got involved. Your agent was making some public statements. I mean, it was a real furor at the time, and for good reason.
Yeah, the thing about it is Johnny actually had a go at a lot of foreign golfers. His commentary was always biased towards the American players. If the American players hit a poor shot, it would be a bad bounce or, something happened. Whereas if a foreigner did it, they were useless. And, he had a trait of, really getting into the foreign golfers. It could be from Europe, it could be from Canada, Mexico, it didn't matter where it was from. If you weren't from America and you had the wrong initials, guess what? You were going to cop it.
It would take a lot of discipline to control your emotions through something like that, and it seems as if you did as well as possible, and in the end Johnny Miller was the one, most certainly, with egg on his face. But speaking about emotions in golf, it's such an important part of the game, being able to control it. If you go to any golf course anywhere in the world, you'll hear the average member screaming and shouting and swear words being shouted and clubs being slammed every now and again as well. But when you watch guys on tour, it's very rare that happens. When it does, it's a big story, obviously, if someone shows a bit of ill discipline. Why is that? Is it because you have to keep your emotions in check in order to ensure your game's at the top level, or is it because you got the cameras on you all the time and you simply can't afford to?
Yeah, it's a bit of the latter. The camera's on and you're going to get a very big fine. And the PGA Tour used to have a fining system of your first fine is your first fine. It could be $1,000, it could be $5,000. And if you get fined again, it doubles. And it doubles, and it doubles. The most fine golfer on the PGA Tour was actually Tiger Woods. Not surprisingly, because he's always on the camera, and all the rest of us got to actually get off the camera and we could vent our frustrations. And a lot of the time when you're playing, you would actually keep your emotions intact, and if something happened poorly, you'd swear to yourself under the breath, but no one could actually hear. And that's just one of those things that you had to, really hold in tight. The PGA Tour, it was against regulations for the media to actually go into the locker room. That was our inner sanctum where we could actually go in and just throw our golf shoes off and throw them into the locker and, just really vent. And that's the only place we could do it. And we couldn't do it anywhere else in the car park or out in the practice range or anywhere. So that's where I look at sport today in Australia, like the NRL, the AFL, and they've got the cameras in the locker rooms. They should never, ever be there. That's the players' release, to get in there and actually get away from it. But, the golfers, we controlled ourselves pretty good. Occasionally you're going to go nuts.
Of course, it's that kind of game. It's utterly infuriating. Never mind when it's your livelihood. And someone like you who, you made it, I think about the guys who are struggling to get on tour and struggling to get their card, how damn difficult that must be. We've spoken about all your great moments, and there are so many. Can you recall a moment in your career when you did become frustrated for a period of time, where for whatever reason things weren't clicking and it really started to get to you?
Yeah, probably now, because I don't practice and I hit a lot of crappy shots. I'm quite lucky. Look, I'm fortunate that the career that I have had, that I was able to perform really well, win enough tournaments to help set up the family. Whereas, coming out today, the guys are really, really good. And, I really didn't get frustrated with my game because I was always able to control my short game, and that got me through a lot of the times when I wasn't probably playing as good. There's times when I've won tournaments and I've played absolute garbage from tee to green, but my short game got me through.
An incredible asset to have. And in 2007, at the age of 41, Craig, you finally broke through for an Australian Open title, which was no doubt an incredible moment for you at the Australian Golf Club. Just take us through that one and how special it was at a time in your career when you were just starting to get past your peak.
Yeah, that's correct. I've been playing really well up in Japan, and I'd been doing a lot of practice, and I always did a lot of practice, to get prepared for the tournaments in Australia or any event. Didn't matter where it was. But I was playing really well, and the Australian has always been a golf course that I've loved going to play. It suited my game. I won New South Wales Open there when I was 21. And then I'd lost the playoff to John Morse in 89, I think it was, or 90. And, I was looking forward to playing at the Australian. And, it was windy on that third round. And I had a decent round to get me back in the tournament. And, going into Sunday, we had a little bit of an indifferent day. We had the thunderstorms that were lingering around, and, it was just a really eerie feeling for me. My father-in-law had just passed, and, I had my mother and father over. My brother was actually caddying Paul Sheen. My nephew was on the bag, Matt Thomas. He was caddying for me. I'd done tore my meniscus a few weeks earlier in Japan, so I couldn't actually bend down. The kids were at an age, they come out to the golf and they were able to watch me win the Aussie Open. It's one of those things, it's the icing on the cake, and probably the proudest moment.
An incredible moment to finish your career on. You mentioned your brother caddying for you there. What have your relationships with your caddies been like over the journey, and what is that actual relationship like on tour? I mean, how close do you get? How much friction can sometimes occur between player and caddy on golf's highest stage?
Yeah, my caddy, my nephew actually caddied for me that week, but my brother caddied for Shio. My brother did caddy for me for probably about 8 years, and he was one of those people that could say a lot of things to me that a lot of other people couldn't get away with. And we had a lot of really good times. And I remember we were playing a practice round for the Players' Championship at Sawgrass, and every year the second hole would get me. And we were trying to work out how we're going to play it, because when the flag goes on the back right the very first day, the hole location, we would hit it on the green for two and three putt and make a par. And then we decided we're going to go hit over the green and then chip it back on. And I hit a really good tee shot sitting in the fairway, and we're still deciding in the tournament what to actually do. And it took us a couple of minutes, and the other players I was playing with are like, "Are you guys all right there?" Because we were just about ready to hit each other. He was honest, and great to have him out there as a caddy.
Were you someone who, whatever the caddy said you did, or the caddy would give a bit of advice, you'd say, "Yep, no worries," but it was just, "I'm doing this," and that's it? How were you in that situation?
No, it was keep up, shut up, and I'll make the decisions. However, when my brother did speak, he was speaking for the right reason, to hit the correct shot. Darrell, the playoff, many other occasions. It was actually pretty easy to caddy for me. And when I had other caddies come and caddy at different times, they said, "You're actually easy to caddy for because you don't get flyers." And I never used to hit flyers, and I never got the ball to go to the left-hand side. So it was pretty easy to actually go out and caddy for me. That's what they reckon. So
amazing. And I dare say you were pretty good to be in terms of a sponsorship agreement as well, because one of our other listener questions spoke about your Schweppes visor and the Schweppes cap, which you made famous on the Australian tour for for years and years and years. And they wanted to get your views on that and the fact that you always wore that cap that stood out so much and I guess did a lot for that brand.
Yeah, it worked both ways though. Schweppes are very much into golf, and the other companies that they sell to, might be Woolies, Coles, or different hotels or wherever it was. They would come and play the pro-ams, and I would go out and look after their clients, and they would sell drinks, and it worked both ways. So we got to know each other over many, many years, and I was with the company for 28 years. Schweppes is a fantastic company, and they've been in Australian golf for a long, long time, and they will remain to be in golf for a long, long time. So, golf is really lucky that they are one of the companies that want to put money into our game. Fantastic.
And many other companies have as well, and you've played many a Pro-Am, no doubt, Craig, both here and abroad, and I'm sure you understand the importance of them. And I do know there's a story around where in a Pro-Am in America, you got thrown in a group alongside 3 very famous individuals as well. Can you talk us through that moment?
Yeah, you're talking NFL?
Yep.
I was actually playing the Honda Classic, and my Pro-Am partners were Dan Marino, Bernie Kosak, and I think it was Alexander, and the other one was actually Lawrence Taylor. They play 4 amateurs in the Pro-Ams over there, and Lawrence Taylor was probably the meanest person I've ever seen, and the other footballers said, you want to see him when he gets on the field of an NFL? I've gone, well, it'd be pretty hard. And the media actually come up to me, and I didn't know who these NFL players were. And I said to the media, look, it'd be like one of the Americans coming out and seeing our AFL, NRL, or the cricketers.
Yeah.
They would have no idea. So these guys had the best day, and we went out and really had a good time. It was the Honda Classic.
A lot of people would have excused you for being nervous on that occasion, but you didn't really know who they were, so I guess you weren't too bothered. But what's the most nervous you've ever been in golf? Is there a moment you can recall where the nerves really did get to you, or there was an occasion that was different to others?
Not really. I was one of those people that if I'd done my practice, I didn't get nervous. And if I was prepared to go out and play, I would do my practice in preparation for the tournament. I figured that if I've done all the preparation, there's no reason getting nervous.
And that led to a wonderful career, Craig Parry. It's been awesome going through it all. Just really enjoyed it. So many great moments, so many interesting stories, and the mark you've left on Australian golf is an indelible one. So thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. I know people have enjoyed this, and keep telling your tales because Australian golf revels in them. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks, Dan. No worries at all.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.